if I would have applied myself, I could have gone to the NBA.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. But it's just like, it's been done. I didn't want to, I was like, I don't want to be a follower. Hi, I'm Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Shea Serrano. And we are back. We have a new podcast from Wondery. It's called Six Trophies.
Woo!
And it's the best.
Each week, Shea Serrano and I are combing through all the NBA storylines, finding the best, most interesting, most compelling stories, and then handing out 6 pop culture themed trophies for 6 basketball related activities.
Trophies like the Dominic Toretto I Live My Life a Quarter Mile at a Time trophy, which is given to someone who made a short-term decision with no regard for future consequence.
Or the Christopher Nolan Tenet trophy, which is given to someone who did something that we didn't understand.
Catalina Wine Mixer trophy.
Ooh, the Lauryn Hill, you might win some, but you just lost one trophy. And what's more, the NBA playoffs are here, so you want to make 6 Trophies your go-to companion podcast through all the craziness. Follow 6 Trophies on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Listen ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, and I am joined, as almost always, by Josh Bowe, fellow editor over at MavsMoneyball.com. Josh, the Dallas Mavericks just won the NBA championship. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Let's go to Disney World.
Oh
2. Does this one count for 2? Is that how it works?
My brain's not really functioning. I'm just going to be honest. I've had several days in a row on top of a 6 or 7 month period where I just haven't gotten enough sleep. And a lot of that is choice. Stay up late, do podcasts, have a small child, get a puppy. These things are compounding. And I am not all here. And when someone else volunteered to take the recap off my hands tonight at Mavs Moneyball, I was elated because my brain's just not there. And then I'm sitting there watching this first quarter of the game. So for those of you who may not have been paying any attention because you were checked out on the series, and quite candidly, I don't blame you, the Dallas Mavericks beat the Celtics 122-84. And the team that showed up tonight was just, really on both sides. The team that showed up for the Mavericks was not, we haven't seen them play like this since Game 5 against the Wolves. The first quarter was really, really something where the Mavericks play. I'm trying to think what was different about the quarter other than the fact that the defensive intensity and the decision making on the defensive choices, like the switches, felt a lot firmer. The Boston offense was a little lackadaisical. What about it? What was different about the start of the game to you?
I think the biggest thing, so funny enough, offensively, because we talked about this after Game 3, mm-hmm. I didn't see a ton of adjustments scheme-wise. I mean, they're more lineup-wise, which we can get into, but that didn't really show as much in the first quarter because they didn't start making subs, until the second quarter. Because the Mavericks still, they had 21 assists, which is not a terribly high assist game. Luka and Kyrie still scored the majority of the points. They still took the majority of the shots. The Mavericks only had 5 players in double figures, but 2 of them happened in garbage time. Tim Hardaway Jr. and then Exum hit some shots in the fourth quarter also. So they really only had 3 in the game. So all the things we talked about for Game 3, too much one-on-one basketball, the Celtics kind of shading their defense so that they're not going to blitz or trap Luka or Kyrie, but they're still going to make things difficult, make them try to take difficult contested long twos. Some of that stuff still kind of happened, but the Mavericks just made shots. And that's what Kyrie, when I, that was one of the questions I got to ask after Game 3 was, they're taking away Gafford and Lively and Jones and Washington scoring. What's your counter to that with the way they're playing you? And to him, he said, when he said we, he's referring to himself and Luka, saying we have to be more efficient with our opportunities, with the thinking being if we can just keep punishing that coverage by ourselves, then that's going to maybe force them out of their comfort zone. And I know a lot of people wanted them to try some different stuff. And really, that's kind of what happened. The Luka and Kyrie were incredibly efficient on 2-pointers. The Mavericks were, for the game, 30 of 49 in the paint. That's 61%. They were 18 of 26 in the restricted area. They were 12 of 23 in the paint outside the restricted area. I think Luka in particular, Luka was 5 of 6 at the rim, 6 of 10 in the paint away from the rim. Like, easily their best paint game. They scored 60 points in the paint. So they were kind of right. They just took that coverage and were like, okay, we're just not going to miss these paint shots we've been missing. And then their defense was a little bit better. But that was the story to me, is it just feels like they kind of took what Boston was giving them and just were ultra efficient with it.
Well, and as the game wore on, and we're talking second and third quarters because the game was over with by midway through the third, Luka was scoring so often and so easily that the natural inclination from the Boston defenders in the corners was to peel off. Like,
I think I saw some doubles for the first time in this series.
There was a Josh Green 3-pointer where he got fouled by Jaylen Brown, where he stepped in on a Luka and Luka just whizzes it past his ear. That doesn't happen in games 1 through 3. Amanda Jackson in the comments makes a really fantastic point. I can't believe I didn't remember, and this just shows you how much brain worms I have. She says Lively making that 3 completely broke the game. The game was tight until that moment. And I tell you what, I 100% agree with her. That was the kind of shot where, first of all, Derek Lively hitting his first 3 in the NBA Finals, hitting his first 3 of the NBA season. Is that correct? I don't know. He's the youngest player to hit a 3 in the Finals, to go along with being the first player since Magic Johnson to be a rookie with multiple double-doubles in the NBA Finals. I might look up that Lively stat in a bit, but just truly incredible stuff there. And, the way Luka was scoring, I still felt like in the first quarter, he got a lot of calls this game. That's just a simple fact.
The Mavericks took 22 free throw attempts.
Well, that's honestly, but with how physical the Celtics defense was with him, you had Drew Holiday out there body bumping him 50 feet away from the basket. And I'm okay with them not calling that sort of stuff because I felt like it was pretty consistent. But the Mavericks don't guard the Celtics guys that far from the hoop. That's just not a choice they're making. But it's really interesting to watch Luka channel the frustrations that he was having in Game 3. And, we've talked about this a lot. It's fine. And I know some people don't like it when we talk about this, but I don't really care. When Luka channels his emotional energy to just playing and to not barking, it has a trick. It affects the team the same way as when the polar opposite of when he does talk, because I think the energy is so negative. And I know I sound ridiculous to a degree, like I'm a lady with crystals talking about feelings and stuff. But over the course of the game, Luka talking so much just matters. And he didn't do it at all in the first half tonight. I don't really remember him complaining once, to be quite honest with you. And I'm sure he did. It's just part of the game. But he really, slowly took over and was just sort of everywhere in that first quarter and first half. And it just, he had 25 points at half.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Well, I mean, how many did he finish with here? I don't even know.
He only had 20. Finished with only 29.
So he had 4 in the second half because they were just they were. I mean, and his 29, 5, and he had 3 steals and only 1 turnover. Like, that really doesn't address the impact. I was talking about the free throws with him a little bit. I think that got the Celtics a little bit off kilter. But like that, if I'm a Celtics fan, and I'm I could be off key here, but like getting beat like this would not make me like, you gotta be like, okay, fuck, what did we do here? I still think the Celtics are a really absolutely incredible basketball team. So I don't want to, teams are allowed to have bad games. Hell, we've seen the Mavericks have some bad games, but it's just, I'm not exactly like a big, if you don't believe you shouldn't be here kind of guy, but like, you watch that game and you're like, all right,
did
the Mavericks find a little something? Like, we're kind of skipping to the end because the Mavericks come out of the halftime and I think they were up 26 or something like that at halftime.
Yeah.
35. It was like 35-61, something like that.
Yeah, that was it.
And God, they held Boston to 14 points in the second quarter. Just incredible stuff.
The stat go ahead.
Well, the game was over. The midway through the third, the game was over.
Yeah. The stat of the game and the stat of the series, really. Mavericks had 7 corner 3 attempts, which isn't, still not a lot. They only had 5 in game 3, so they improved. But here's the kicker: they had 7 corner 3 attempts. The Celtics had 6. It's the first time all series the Mavericks have had more corner 3s than the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
Not a surprise. Celtics had 18 corner 3s in game 3, and then they go down to 6. Like that. That's the game. It feels really stupid. We could talk here for an hour about all these different things, but like that, just look at that number, and that kind of tells you how the game went. It's not a shocker that this was the worst game.
But Ryan Parker in the chat with a excellent, not like a counter stat, but something that I think is worth talking about here.
Oh yeah,
Kyrie and Luka were 1 of 14 from 3, and the Mavericks won by 40 points. That is
crazy.
Fucking nuts.
They scored 60 points in the paint. Luka was 11 of 16 in the paint. Like, not overall, 11 of 16 in the paint.
Oh, he gets that, and it's so funny. We've talked about this for years. He gets that left shoulder past the defender's hip, and he usually likes the guy to ride him, and he wants to throw an oop or kick it out to the corner. I mean, what did you say he was? 5 of 6 at the rim?
5 of 6 restricted area. Yeah.
Restricted area. Okay. And the one that he missed, I remember it where it's just a little too much sauce on it. That's all. Like it's almost like he was surprised he was all the way there. So that was really something.
I mean, Luka made more shots in the paint tonight than the Celtics did as a team. Celtics made 13 shots in the paint.
Well, that's a great pivot point. Okay, Mavericks offense came alive. Mavericks defense was spectacular. There were some Luka stops, not like I feel like a Luka stop at the rim is a sentence that doesn't make sense, but he sort of stonewalled Tatum a couple of times early. Tatum only finished 4 of 10. And it was like, even the announcers were like, "Whoa, hey, what's happening here?" And I don't want to sit here and act like Luka answered all the defensive questions about him that were raised after game 3, but we have to absolutely give credit to the man's defensive effort in that game.
Oh yeah. I mean, half the battle was just getting back on defense. Like when you talk about complaining, like it's not the complaining necessarily, because like you said, all prominent NBA players complain to the refs.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Luka that sticks out is that his complaining seems more detrimental to like the play, because just the way that he times it and like, not getting back on defense. We talked in Slack. We didn't talk on the podcast about that play in game 3 in the first quarter when he was on the floor and the bench was like yelling at him to get back. Like none of that was happening at all. Like he was, just getting back in transition makes a world of difference, especially with the Celtics team and how they can get you all mixed up with cross matches and everyone can shoot. And like they're playing, 4 or 5 guys that can all rip from deep. Like you just got to get back, and like he was back almost every time. And I think that just helps stabilize they help them get into their half court a little bit better. And they're a much better half court defensive team with all these rim protectors and their length. Like they can use it to their advantage when they're kind of set and settled. And that happens when Luka's getting back on defense, which I thought he did a great job of.
Mm-hmm. So you take out these threes that Luka took. Luka was I'm bouncing all over.
He had no legs on his 3, but that's okay.
It's so funny. But all right, so you back out those threes. He was 12 of 18 from the floor. Yeah. My God.
Oh yeah, he was absolutely dominant in the paint. Yeah. Limiting the Celtics to 6 corner 3s is huge. Celtics, I mean, definitely the Celtics kind of got a little loose with the ball in terms of like they kind of just. I mean, there's definitely you don't win by 38 points without the other team like helping you out a little bit. Like in the finals, like the Celtics definitely didn't give their best effort, but the Mavericks were way sharper. I thought Lively had an awesome game defensively, and I think that's kind of the key for them is can Lively look like Lively? Can he play in space? Because I think those first two games, it's just tough because he just doesn't see this like the 5-out spacing. Like we've seen him struggle with that in the regular season. I feel like he's just getting more reps and he's feeling more comfortable. I think the Mavericks did a better job. I'd have to go back and rewatch because I could be just saying this. I could be completely off base here. So correct. So I'm sorry if I'm wrong here, but I felt like in game 3, they were very specific. They were very diligent in keeping Lively and Gafford near the rim at all times because I think they just did not want their bigs guarding in space. And I felt like tonight they trusted their bigs a little bit more to play out and guard the corners, but also trust that they can recover with that length. And with Lively and Gafford, they both have foot speed. I think get out, cover the ground. Like Gafford had that block on that Tatum 3.
That was nuts.
I felt like they trusted the bigs a little bit more to expand their responsibility. Whereas in game 3, it felt like they were like, hey, don't leave the paint. And Boston got so many threes because they're just like, don't leave the paint. Don't worry about it. And I felt like they just tweaked a little bit so that those guys could kind of roam a little bit farther because they're so Lively's got what, a 7'7" wingspan?
Lively's so big,
right? Man. Like he can recover to the corner and to the paint. That's not the corner to the rim. That's the shortest distance from the 3-point line to the rim. Obviously, it's it's just shorter than the above the break. Like you use that to try to ward off some of those corner threes. And I thought the Mavericks did a better job trusting him. And then it's up to Lively to reward that trust. And he did in a big way.
Oh yeah. And I think like the Lively of it all is, we talked about the corner 3 earlier. His offensive rebounding was
huge.
So like, Bill Simmons, I don't know. I've listened to every NBA podcast. I know a lot of fans skip stuff whenever the Mavericks lose. I don't blame them. It's like, why do you want to hear? But I'm always interested in hearing of what various either commentators or experts have to say about the Mavericks. And one show I listened to pointed out just how sort of out of control Lively was in Boston. And I think that's accurate. Like he was. That's not a criticism. It's just sort of a statement of fact. These 2 games in Dallas, I mean, the game 3 effort from him was really, truly amazing. And then watching him do it again tonight, but in a way that the Mavericks were really rewarded, is quite something. Like they're beyond there's just so many like fun plays that I can't wait to see how he expounds upon. I'm pretty sure it was a cross court. They're at opposite wings in a fast break. Luka passes to Kyrie at the right wing from the left wing during a fast break, and then Kyrie flips it to Lively for a dunk. And they panned it to Dirk and Patrick Dumont, and they're just dying laughing because it's. I don't know if I'm ever really going to get used to this sort of verticality with Mavericks basketball, man. Like it's so fun to watch and makes you wonder sort of what the team building guys were thinking several years ago. And it's like, let's only give Luka shooters. And
no one that can run and jump.
The verticality element of the game, when there's space, gives us a lot of room. So,
yeah. It's not a surprise. What Gafford and Lively combined for 18 points. I think that's easily the most they've had in a game combined. And when those guys are scoring, that's usually a good indication the Mavericks are going to win. So
right,
that was big. And then we didn't even get, I don't know if you want to take a break before we get into what I think was kind of like low key the best adjustment they made tonight.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. Let's take a quick break. All right, friends, family. We have fewer people here than I would have thought following a win. But those of you who are here, if you're new to the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you're here on YouTube, if you're watching from Twitter, head on over to YouTube. We're at Pod Maverick. We go live after every game. You can participate in the comments, have a good time. Following the first podcast here, I will do a secondary show where I would like you as a fan base to come up here and talk a little ball with me. After game 3, there's a lot of that was a long show. I was very surprised about that, where lots of people, it took a while to get going, but it was a lot of fun. We do this after every show. Next season, when I'm back to not having a baby, I will probably be doing this more often, but I've done it after every playoff game, and it's been a great time. Last thing, if you're listening on an audio stream, we're going to insert some ads here. If you could go ahead and listen to those, I would very much appreciate it. That's how Josh and I make a little bit of money, and we will be right back.
Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all understand the importance of mental and physical well-being and proper recovery for top-notch performance. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring podcasts on the Blue Wire Network. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, then you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Wherever you are across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/bluewire to learn more and find a center near you. That's unified, UNIFYD, healing.com/bluewire. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, including EE System.
All right. My wife is across the room. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
She just goes, "Where's your baby going next season?" And I'm just like, well, we're not going to be up. Because it's pretty silly thinking about the stream or thinking about this, but I mean, in November, like
you had a baby.
The baby was joining us in the episodes. Like that doesn't happen anymore. Anyway, we are back. What did you say? You had recommended we break, and then you said you had a take you wanted. So what are you thinking?
Oh yeah, I think because schematically on the offensive end, I don't think there was a lot of adjustments. Kyrie, I don't think because the thing I keep looking for is Kyrie catch and shoot threes, and they just are not happening. I think he had like one or two, and one of them was off an offensive rebound, so not necessarily off of like off ball action.
Yep.
So that's still something that they can look at. But I thought when we're talking adjustments, the Exum Green minutes in the first half were huge. And Green played a little bit more in game 3. He's actually been playing a decent amount this series. He's averaging now about, right around near 20 minutes per game. But he had 22 in game 3 after 14 minutes in game 2. And I know he only had 18 minutes. It's not even the most minutes he's played. But he had a lot of impactful, I felt, early first half minutes. And so did Exum, who played his most minutes in the series. And you think about it, and you think about how Boston is guarding Dallas and the way that they are letting Kyrie and Luka work one-on-one, the way that they are kind of shading help coverage, not necessarily from the corners, but, whoever's near the rim. If there's a big, if Lively or Gafford in the game, they're kind of putting a defender in the paint to ward off Luka and Kyrie. They're kind of helping off the above the break players. They're helping a little bit. They're not outright trapping, but again, it's almost like a shell kind of defense with, they're okay with Luka or Kyrie taking one-on-one shots. And then if they get a little closer to the basket, then they maybe send one. It's not that trap and blitz that we saw, Oklahoma City and the Clippers and the Timberwolves do. And what makes that hard is that means there's more, your role players have more responsibility to try to do something. They're basically saying, hey, we don't care if a role player has a little extra space or can play one, go one-on-one because we don't feel like your role players can beat us one-on-one. And they don't get that extra room if we're not doubling and trapping. So you think about PJ Washington, obviously PJ Washington, Derek Jones Jr., Lively, Gafford, who are their main role players outside of, past Luka Kyrie. Those guys aren't really going to beat you off the dribble that much. PJ can do it a little bit.
PJ stumbled in the lane, and I
had a great layup.
I was at PCA yesterday, and I think I was talking with the basketball coach of that program over there, and I was just like, we're talking about the different guys in Mavericks that can attack the basket, and PJ's still a young man, but he's got to tighten up this dribble. Like he gets into the paint, and it's like, okay, turnover.
Yeah, for sure. So that's something you can work on. But Green and Exum are probably, outside of Kyrie and Luka, their most dynamic players with the ball in terms of being able to dribble and pass, right? Maybe Hardy, but I think I would trust Green and Exum as passers more than Hardy. And so it makes sense if the Boston Celtics defense is like, hey, we're not gonna give your role players a ton of space, or we might shade off them a little bit, but we're going to close out on them.
Right.
Like Green and Exum being able to attack closeouts, being able to attack one-on-one coverage and move the ball, touch the paint, kick out, or finish is just such a difference maker when you've got PJ and Derek Jones Jr. who are just kind of like, we need to catch and shoot. Like that's kind of what they want to do. We want to catch and shoot, where Green and Exum can catch and go. Like, and that just makes such a big difference. And I don't know if that's going to last. We'll see.
Well, you got to play Exum. That's what made kids' decision in Game 3 to fucking put Tim Hardaway in for 37 minutes. So stupid. Exum dunked the ball and he never saw the floor again.
I know, it was very weird.
Like I'm sorry. And Kid got salty about it in the post game presser, and I'm like, I'm sorry, boss. It was a bad call. Tonight they made a better call. They left him out there. And granted, Kid has been basically playing third guard roulette for the better part of three series now. So I don't entirely hold it against him, but man, those guys looked good. That was really
they were difference makers, and they only had one assist between them. I think. Let me see. Yeah, Green had one, X-Men 0. So
sure.
Again, it's not about assists,
but Exum was pushing and attacking. There was one layup. Kind of floater shot, really, where they couldn't get the ball to Luka, and at like 7 seconds, he just kind of. In my mind, I always think of it as like the volleyball line, like right past half court, where it's like, and he just takes off and scores at the rim. They wiped a three off the floor, off the books because they said he had a heel touch, and then he hit another three later. That's one thing I just haven't entirely understood about this playoff run is Exum can't. He's 4 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 4 from three. Exum can't do anything if he's not going to get opportunity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to be fair, like he looked really bad in that Celtics series.
Yes.
Or not Celtics, sorry, the Clippers. And then he didn't look great in the Thunder. And then didn't really get another chance after that. He had like a good 4 minutes or whatever in one of the Wolves games, and he didn't play anymore after that.
Right.
And I think Kid just didn't, after those first two series, just didn't trust him for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, he's This might be a good matchup for those two. And again, it's not, you look at their numbers and Exum got into double figures. Like Josh Green only had 3 points
but his energy was
the movement and the dynamicism of his play, I thought made a big difference compared to how standstilly a lot of the other Mavericks role players can get.
That's true. Sense? Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Though, and this is only in my head because I saw like a mixtape of Drew Holiday working out in the off season. And it was a mixtape of him playing defense and blocking the shit out of guys trying to score on him. And Green gets this step from the right wing or right corner past Holiday. And he basically tries to use the rim as a means of protection to get the shot up. And Drew just swatted him from behind. And I was like, man, like Drew is one of the most terrifying defenders in the league. Like Luka's already talked about it. It's not news, but like every time I see him do something, it's like, man, this guy is special. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think we need to note this was their no Kristaps Porzingis again for the most part for the Celtics. And you're finally starting to see, without Kristaps that they can look a little more vulnerable. Al Horford played 23 minutes and had one shot. Like he does not have the trigger that KP does. And like it turns that 5-out spacing in a little different on its head. And it's kind of what we saw. Remember when the Mavericks played the Thunder with Chet Holmgren, and it's like, oh, what are the Mavericks going to do against that 5-out spacing? It's like, well, Holmgren's release isn't there yet. And he was a rookie. So he's going to get there. He's going to get better, but his release isn't there. He doesn't actually get up as many attempts as you would think. And for me, volume is king. Like the percentage is great, but it's how many shots are you going to get up? That's what's really going to put the fear of God into a defense. And Horford's trigger is just not the same as KP. Like say what you will about KP. He's had seasons where he shoots like 34, 35%. And you're kind of like, why doesn't he shoot better? But he also gets up like 8 or 9 a game. And it just keeps the defense honest. And Horford only got up one shot in 23 minutes. Like, it just changes the floor balance, I think, a little bit. It makes it easier for the Mavericks to cheat, recover, use their size and length to their advantage.
Well, and I will say, this was the first game. Like the scheduling of these finals is wonky. So they have 2 days off between every game up until now, where they get 1 day off. And that 1 day rest, Horford's 38, I think. He's one of the oldest players in the league. So asking him to be ready to go again is tough. It's a tough ask.
And he's basically been the starter all playoffs.
And so, Xavier Tillman has been, like, quite candidly remarkable and how he's been called, like, and what he's done. Like, he's guarded Luka really well on the switches. And so but at the same time, it's a different look. We've talked about this for years, really before this current iteration of the Mavericks. But like, one of the reasons that Tim Hardaway was so important to previous iterations of this team is because he would actually shoot the fucking ball.
Right.
And it's like, it doesn't do you any good. Like, Maxey had a good game, so I'm gonna pick on him for a second. He got a left corner three where he ended up driving and getting fouled, but he pass faked to no one on the baseline. Like, do you remember this?
I might have missed this one.
He got free throws off the drive, but he pass faked to the baseline. I yelled at my TV, and then he took it off the dribble. Anyway, I bring that up to say, it's like, you just got to be willing to shoot. And if you're willing to shoot, your defender will kind of, you have it in the scouting. Like, he's, it's like Maxi Kleber is not a stretch five because he doesn't shoot anymore. Right? Like, they don't care if he takes the shot. Versus Horford, if Horford's going to shoot, like, the Mavericks are like, oh, fuck, we're not giving it up to Horford. But he's just not, at the same time, he's also not a catch and shoot guy. Like, I'm sorry, that's not correct. He's not he's
not going to get up 10 threes in a game.
Right. He's not a totally willing trigger man, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's a difference for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And his release is a little bit slow. Like, KP, he gets that shot up. Like,
oh my God.
It's
just
a big difference.
An incredible shot when KP gets it up. Anyhow.
Right. So I think that's a big difference for sure.
Well, is there anything else we want to touch on, or should you got writing to do?
Yeah, I got writing to do. You got a live show to do. But yeah, that was fun.
Well,
even if the Mavericks lose Game 5, like, that was just cool for the fan. For the fans that were able to.
I needed that a little bit for my own
to
psyche.
Get one. Yeah, it just helps, right?
Like, I just quite candidly was getting sick and tired of all the dumb motherfuckers, and I'm sorry for my cursing. Actually, I'm not that sorry for my cursing. I'm getting tired of all the dumb motherfuckers who are like, our team should have been here. And I just am constantly reminded of the scene from The Social Network where the Mark Zuckerberg character is like, if you would have invented Facebook, then you would have invented Facebook. If your team should have been here, you should have won the game. Shut up. You don't see me sitting here talking about how if Derek White doesn't make multiple absolutely crazy shots, maybe the Mavericks are up in this series. Do you know why? Because he made the shots. This shit matters. Like, it's so disrespectful. Oh, I don't know about these Mavericks. It's like Kendrick Perkins talking about how Luka's stock's gone down because of the finals. Kiss my ass. You're in the fucking NBA finals.
His deepest playoff run ever in his career.
My God,
like,
what are you doing? Now, we can criticize, and you should criticize the Mavericks for some of the things that have happened, but they still got here.
Right.
My goodness. Like, and so with that in mind, I'm just really glad that the Mavericks did this. So
right. Everyone's you got free to fire back on your podcast, because I know every time the Mavericks lose, I see a bunch of fans that are like, well, I'm not reading or listening to anything for the next 48 hours.
Right. And it's always our most loyal people too. That's the funny part. Yeah. Anyhow. Okay. So I'm going to head over to the live show. Those of you who are listening on the audio stream, that'll get posted at some point on Saturday. And then Josh and I will be back Monday night. We'll see what's going on here. Everybody head over to MavsMoneyball.com multiple times over the weekend. We'll see what we're going to be doing here. Oh, hey, quick shout out to 2 super chats. This is incredible. Cameron Drummond sent us $50. That's a lot, man. That's a hell of a super chat. Listen after every game. Love the podcast. Thanks for all the hard work from both of you this season. Mavs and 7. Appreciate that, man. JM 3245 sent us $10. He says, I'm pledging $100 if Mavericks win Game 7. That's pretty amazing. All right, guys, hang around if you're here in the live stream, and we'll be right back. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out, and let's go Mavs.